Hey folks. Well, after getting back to Redmond from my trip to Helena and the associated visits to the doctor, cardiologist, I decided I needed to do something very simple and almost mindless. I don't know if mindless is the right word, but something that didn't require a huge amount of concentration, but might be in a way a little bit therapeutic. And I had stopped off, of course, and picked up yet a few more hobby things that were in various places back home, Montana home. And among those was a box that had a lot of slot car figures or stuff that when I was scratch building slot cars, I picked up stuff. And there was a bag that had a whole bunch of 1/32 scale Airfix figures, World War II, Eighth Army, Eighth British Army, Desert Army from that era. And I had bought those because a friend told me that these posable figures, I don't know if they'd be articulated, but they had separate arms, heads, so you could mix and match. Worked really well for doing slot cars. You could grind off the uniforms and use them as needed for drivers' figures. So I had this, I didn't have the box anymore, but this big bag. And I thought I'd quickly assemble a few of these figures and paint them up and not really worry about how it all looked. In fact, it was going to be less than a day job. So it wasn't going to be slap chop technique, which I'm not going to bother to try to define. It's out there. But just a real quick glue them, sand them, or sand them, glue them, slap some paint on them, move on to the next. I don't know the era when these figures were produced. They're pretty decent quality. One thing, my only criticism would be that I don't think there's a lot of real variation in the heads. Most of the guys look exactly the same, so I think it's only one or two molds or sculpts that were done. And the other thing is that seam lines tend to reappear even though I've scraped them off. Maybe that's just my imagination. In any event, I quickly painted up four guys without a whole lot of finesse, to put it mildly. And I can see a lot of ways I could improve all of these guys if I were to take some time. But I think in terms of total paint time, it was no more than 60 minutes for all four figures, and it sort of shows, but it was relaxing. I did not bother to try and get the arms in correct positions to hold weapons. So in a certain sense, they almost look like they're performing martial arts, but that's okay. I just needed to get some practice back, and I'll start working on some figures that will go into real displays pretty soon. In the meantime, yeah, I've got a lot of nifty little pieces there. Thompson submachine guns, Lee Enfields, Bren rifles, Bren automatic rifles, bayonets, Wembley revolvers, helmets, knapsacks, all sorts of stuff, and more figures. I also found this little box of Pricer, it says military, 1/35 figures from Germany, I'm pretty sure, Pricer. I don't know who gave this to me. I'm sure I didn't order it. Somebody gifted it to me, and they're civilians. It looks like they're waving in liberation troops. So, they're smaller. They're 50 millimeter or a little bit less. These are 54 millimeter, and I'll get to these too. So that's what I did on this day that I hate. Yes, the day the clock changes. I don't care whether it's daylight savings or standard time. I just don't like it changing twice a year. But that's a subject for another day. Okay, that's it. And everybody, take care.